Hello, welcome back to my channel and welcome to another video where I'm gonna be telling you whether I liked or didn't like my anticipated books of 2025. So I made a video in the beginning of the year talking about 20 anticipated releases that I was excited for, and in this video I'm gonna be telling you if I liked those books or not. And actually, like, two of those 20 books didn't end up coming out this year, so I switched those out for other two that, like, at the time that I filmed that video I didn't even know were gonna come out, but when I found out, like, I was definitely excited about them as well. So there will be 20 books in this video as well, just two of them are different from the original video. And so the first book was Adrift in Current Clean and Clear, which was book 10 in the Wayward Children series, which is a series of fantasy novellas, and basically we follow kids who go through like some magical portals that lead them into other worlds. And like in the series, I always really like the books where we, go into a new world and we get to discover that world with a kid. And I don't love as much the books where we're like going on a quest. And it's always like one book where we're discovering a world and then another where we're going on a quest. And in this one, we were discovering a new world. So I was very excited about that. And so we were following Nadia, and she was Russian, I think. And she was like adopted by two Americans, and she was born without an arm, and so like her adoptive parents forced her to wear a prosthetic arm, which she didn't like because like she didn't feel like anything was missing from her. And so like when they forced her to wear that prosthetic arm, she felt like that was not her, and so she really didn't like it, but they were forcing her to wear it. And then one day she like ran away from home and she went into one of those magical portals that led her into a new world. And so we see her explore this new world, and it was like a world of water basically, and it had like a lot of aquatic life, and it had like some giant turtles, and like I love turtles, so that was super fun. And like I did like it, like I like Nadia, I like the world, I like to get to know it, I like the creatures of that world, but I just felt like there was something missing, like a spark, but I don't really know exactly what it was that I wanted more, but I just wanted more of something. And I still enjoyed it. I gave it 4 stars, so obviously I enjoyed it. I just didn't love it as much of the others, like where we explored the new world, but still, obviously, I liked it. Then I read Witchcraft for Wayward Girls, and that one was horror, and we were following Fern, and she was sent to the Wellwood home or something like that because she was 15 and she was pregnant, and that was where young girls who were pregnant were sent to basically hide the fact that they were pregnant. And this was set in the 1970s. And basically in the beginning it was like quite slow because we were getting to know Fern and like the other girls who were there. And actually, like, even though it was slow, I was enjoying it, and I don't usually love like slower paced books, but I was enjoying it. Like, I was liking to get to know the girls, even though like they were obviously having like a terrible time. And one day there it was a like librarian, like a library that was like on a, I don't know if it was like a bus or something, but like a moving library that went there, and the librarian gave them a book about witchcraft, and they started learning some spells, and they like for the first time ever had some power in their life. And like that was nice, but also they had to deal with the consequences of using magic, which wasn't as fun. And there were some like very gruesome scenes, and like some scenes that were kind of like hard to read, but I really liked the girls. I really was like invested in their story. And I'm not gonna say I had fun because like none of this was fun, but I did like the book, and like I said, I really like the girls. I was invested in their story, and it was very interesting to see like how they dealt with the consequences of like using those powers. And yeah, I really liked the book, and I gave it 4.5 stars. Then was At Dark I Become Loathsome, which was also horror, and in this one we were following a man whose wife had died and whose son had been kidnapped. So like he was struggling a lot with grief, and he had come up with like some rituals to help people who basically had started feeling like life wasn't worth living anymore, and like the ritual was supposed to make them change their outlook on life and make them like want to live again. And then he starts like himself starts changing his idea about the rituals, and then he meets a man like for those rituals, and it turns out that like they were more connected than they expected. And like from the premise I thought it was going to be like more about that, like those two men, but it really wasn't that much. I was left feeling like I wanted more, like from everything, honestly. And like it definitely had some disturbing and gross scenes, which is like what I expect and what I want from this author. So like I like that, but like I said, I felt like I wanted more. So overall, I still liked it, but I just wanted more, and I gave it 3.5 stars. And then I read A Dragon of Black Glass, which is the third book in the Moonfall series, which is fantasy. And in this series, you follow Nyx, who in the beginning of the first book basically like foresees the end of the world, and so she's given like a death sentence for that, and she has to, run away. And then she, along with three other characters, are like going on a mission to basically save the world. And one of them finds an artifact that is also like alive and connected to some prophecies. And in this book and like the previous book, we learn more about like the past and the prophecies and how everything is connected. And in this book, they are approaching the Dragon of Black Glass, and like one of the prophecies actually comes true, which is really not good. And we explore like a lot in this book, like in terms of like the area of the world. We explored a lot of it, and some enemies like really came into power, which again, not good. And the ending was very stressful, and I liked it. I definitely enjoyed it. I just didn't love it as much as the previous book, which I think I gave 4.5 stars, but still I enjoyed it and I gave it 4 stars. Then was the fourth consort, which was sci-fi, and in this one we followed Dalton, who worked for Unity, which was a organization that basically wants to have, a lot of planets in the universe, and a lot of people from those planets in the universe like adhere to it. And it says that like basically just wants, unity, and wants everyone to be together, and that's what they say they want, but it's not like that. They're not that nice, actually. And so Dalton is on a mission on a new planet to basically get them to join his organization, Unity, the people from that planet. And also Breaker is there, and Breaker works for Assembly, who basically claims they want the same thing as Unity, but they actually want it, and Unity is like the bad counterpart. And so both Dalton and Breaker are there to get the people from the planet to join their organizations. And they like get in a lot of trouble. They get stranded on the planet, and it gets crazy. And I really like to learn about the different species of aliens, like both the species from that planet, but also like Breaker and his species. And the book was like really funny as well, but really stressful at times. And yeah, like Dalton gets in a lot of trouble, and I was having so much fun. And then like the friendship that is formed in this book was like so cute, and the ending was so cute as well. Like I was not expecting that, so like I loved every second of reading this book, and I gave it 5 stars. Then I read Shroud, which was sci-fi as well, and in this one we were also following a group of people that were on a mission on a distant solar system, and they are, flying over the planet Shroud, which is basically like engulfed in darkness. Like you can't see anything when you're in the planet, or you can't see like into the planet when you're flying above it. And Juna and May actually also get stranded on Shroud, and they, have to survive in those conditions, and they also have to like deal with the native species of Shroud. And we also get like a POV from like that native species of Shroud, which was really cool. And we also get like some interludes about the past, which was also really cool. And I really liked it. And at times like it was really creepy, especially because like I said, you couldn't really see anything. And especially like in the second half, where we got more interactions between Juna and May and like the native species from Shroud, like those were really interesting. I really like to see that. I just felt like the ending was like maybe a bit rushed, but overall I had a good time and I gave it 4 stars. Then I read This Book Will Bury Me, which was a mystery thriller, and we were following Jane. And after her father passed away, she was, obviously dealing with her grief, and she actually got like into a group of people online that were really into true crime and interested in solving, cases. And they get like really invested and like really start investigating a case of some college students who were murdered. And this book is actually set like a year after the events of that. It's like her telling her own side of the story, because apparently like when things ended, she like was not really seen as, a good person. So she was like trying to show her side of the story and like set the record straight, and this is like her telling how things happened. And so, you know, we learn more about like the group of people that she was getting to know, like how they were investigating. We learned about the case, and like I was somewhat interested in the case, like not that much to be honest. And also the book was mostly about Jane and like her grief and her getting to know these people, and not that much about the case anyway. And I didn't really care, to be honest. And like the reveal also like wasn't, you know, I didn't really like it. And like I initially gave it 3 stars, but like maybe it's actually more 2.5. So yeah, like I didn't hate it, but I definitely didn't really like it that much either. And I think I'm going to change my rating into 2.5 stars. Then I read Cold Eternity, which was sci-fi horror, and we were following Hallie, who was running from an interplanetary political scandal, and she needed like a job to lay low, and she finds it on a spaceship where there are like cryogenically frozen bodies from 100 years ago from a program that was like discontinued, but the bodies are still there and someone needs to basically look over them. And so she gets there to the ship, and the ship has some like creepy AI ghosts from when the program was actually working, but like they're still there, and one of them is very creepy. Like he seems to know a lot about Hallie, like things that should not be known to anyone really. And also like the guy who hired her has a very shady side business, and there are like creepy sounds in the spaceship, and like there were some times, very few times, where it was actually creepy. But like when we found out what it really was, it wasn't creepy anymore. And like the creepiest thing about it really was like that AI host. And I didn't really care about Hallie or her life or her problems or like the people who were coming after her. And like the second half was a bit creepier, so I enjoyed that a bit more, but it was just okay, and I gave it 3 stars. Then I read The Staircase in the Woods, which was horror, and in this one we follow a group of, I think, 5 high school friends who find a staircase in the woods. Like there's just a random staircase, and one of them like starts, you know, going up the staircase, and then the staircase vanishes and he vanishes with it. And so the other friends are left like not knowing like what is beyond the staircase or like what happened to their friend. And now 20 years later there is a new staircase in a new location, and they decide that they are going to go up the staircase and find what's beyond it and find their missing friend. And so we see them as they, you know, discover what's beyond it, and as they are in a lot of danger with what happens there. And also we see how their relationships with each other really have changed from when they were in high school to now 20 years later. And like it was very creepy, it was disgusting, it was disturbing. I was having a good time, I was enjoying it, but then I really didn't like the ending, because this was the kind of ending that I really dislike in horror anything, like books, series, movies, anything. I really don't like when this is like the resolution for whatever like creepy scary thing is happening. I don't know why I don't like it, but I really don't. Anything I've seen or read that has this kind of ending, I just really don't like it. So yeah, I didn't like the ending, but the rest, like things that were happening before, I was really liking it. It was very creepy, it was very scary, it was very, sometimes, like I said, disgusting. And yeah, like overall I had a good time. I just didn't really like the ending at all, and so I gave it 3.5 stars. Then was Overgrowth, which was sci-fi horror, and in this one we were following Anastasia, and ever since she was a kid she has been telling people that she is an alien and that the other aliens will come for her. And like obviously no one believes her, but now that she's an adult, the alien invasion has started and they are in fact coming for her and some others like her. And so, you know, basically she kind of has to choose a side, like between the humans that she made friends with and the one that she's dating, or the aliens that she has never even met but that she feels like this connection to because like she's one of them. And we also learn like more about those aliens, like that species, how they work, why they left Anastasia and some others there. And like it wasn't really horror, I don't think. Like there was a bit of body horror, there were like a couple creepy things, but overall like I wasn't really that, you know, scary or creeped out. And the only thing that I really liked was to see like Anastasia's dilemma, like what side she would choose. So like It was okay. I initially gave it 3.5 stars, but I think I'm actually going to give it 3. And yeah, it was okay. Then I read The Devils, which is a fantasy book, and it's actually, I learned, I think, when I was reading the book, that is the start of a new fantasy series, which I didn't know initially, I don't think, when I filmed the video in January. And so this is, like I said, fantasy, and we are following Brother Diaz, who is assigned a new congregation, the Chapel of the Holy Expediency, I think. And they basically have a bunch of creatures, like not human creatures. There are also a couple of humans, but they have like vampires, werewolves, warlocks, elves, and they are assigned a mission, and they basically have to take the long lost princess of Troy back to Troy to like reclaim her throne. And we are basically following them as they go on that quest, as they face a lot of dangers. And I really liked it, and like I was interested in the plot, but mostly like what I really, really loved was these characters. Like they were all so interesting, and they were all so different, and like their interrelationships, interactions with each other, like were so good, that when I learned that this is going to be a series, I was very excited because I really want to be with these characters again. So yeah, definitely had fun, and I gave it 4 stars. Then I read Bury Our Bones in the Midnight Soil, which was also fantasy, and in this one we are following 3 different women across 3 different time periods. And so we have Maria, we have Alice, and we have Charlotte. And Maria like is the first one we follow, I think, and she is like the one that has like her story most in the past, 1532. And she really wants to like basically get away from her hometown, and she thinks that the way to do that is to like marry someone who will take her away. And she does marry this guy, but things definitely like get worse, and he really sucks, and her life really sucks, until she meets someone who basically changes her life. And this is, about vampires. So all these 3 characters eventually do turn into vampires, and we see them like adapt or not adapt to being vampires. And then Alice is in 2019, so like the present, and she's like in college. She also like is trying to start her life over basically, and she has like a one-night stand when she wakes up the next day, she is a vampire. So she now needs to find who turned her into a vampire. And Charlotte, like we only really start to follow her in the second half of the book, so I'm not going to get into her story. But the first half was more like vibes, and the second half definitely had like a stronger plot. And especially like once we got Charlotte's story, I was like hooked. I was already really liking it, but like I was hooked from that point on, and I loved it. I loved following these characters, even though they were really not perfect, and they were definitely like the villains in other people's lives. But like I loved it, and I love to see like their lives, how again they adapted or not to being vampires, and all that they went through, all the places that they went, all the people that they met, and I loved it, and I gave it 5 stars. Then I read Girl in the Creek, which was horror, and in this one we follow Erin, and she went into the town where her brother went missing. And actually that town has a lot of missing persons cases. Like it's not just her brother. A lot of people have gone missing there, and there are a lot of like creepy locations and like scary history about that. So, we are following her as she's like investigating that. And there is like a POV from something, like some entity that is like the creepy aspect of this book. And like I really like that. I really like when you got that creepy POV. But whenever we were with Erin and like just following her around, I did not care at all. Like I honestly couldn't have cared any less. And there is like a body that they find in the creek, so like the girl in the creek, that then disappears from the morgue, and then her fingerprints are found like in a crime scene. So obviously like we're investigating that as well. And again, when we are in the creepy POV, loving it. When we're with Erin and her people, don't care. So the creepy part I absolutely love. The rest was just okay, and I gave it 3.5 stars. Then I read The Bewitching, which was fantasy horror, and we were following 3 timelines basically. And first, like in the most present timeline, we're following Minerva, and she is in college, and she is researching like the true story behind a book that is like a disappearance that happened also like in her college. We also then get to see like that story unfold, like in that timeline. And also like someone in Minerva's own timeline has gone missing. And then we see Alba, who was Minerva's great grandmother, I think, in the early 1900s. And again, people have gone missing, and she knows that like witches are real and they are connected to these disappearances. And so we see like how all of the stories really are connected, especially like the one that inspired the book and Minerva's. And I really liked it. I especially liked Alba's timeline because it was like the most witchy and like the creepiest. But I really like to see like how everything came together. And yeah, definitely I really loved the witchiness. I honestly like wish it was more witchy and it was like even a bit creepier, but I had a good time and I gave it 4 stars. Then I read Not Quite Dead Yet, which was a mystery thriller, and in this one we were following Jet. And in the beginning of the book, she is attacked, like she's hit on the head, and she, is taken to the hospital. And when she wakes up, she is told that she has basically like 1 or 2 weeks to live or something like that. And like she could go into surgery that would, like, most likely she would die anyway in that surgery, or she could just, keep on living that 1 or 2 weeks and then she would definitely die. And she decides that she's going to spend that time that she has left investigating her own murder, basically. And so she and the friend start investigating, and like I was invested in the story, but that wasn't really like what I loved the most. What I loved the most was the characters, which was shocking because in the beginning I really disliked Jet. Like I really did not like her. She was very annoying. I really didn't like her personality, but she really grew on me. And like by the maybe like halfway point or even before, like I was already so invested in like her and her friend, like them investigating together. I was really liking it, and yeah, I really enjoyed it. I definitely felt like, the ending was very rushed, but I still had a really good time. I love the characters and I gave it 4 stars. Then I read A Raging Heart, which was the 3rd and last book in the Heartless Fates series, which was a fantasy. And in the first book, we start following Kala, who is a witch. And basically the witches in this world, like they roll dice to learn their fate, basically. And Kala's fate seemed to be connected to an upcoming war with their gods. And, she didn't want that. So she learned that there was someone in the never-ending forest who could change her fate. So she decides to go there. And on the way, she meets some people who also like want to go there because one of them also wants to change their fate. And so they, in the first book, go through a lot of like trials in the forest, and they, reach that person. And we follow like Kala's 2 best friends as well. One is also a witch, the other is a siren. So they're like different creatures in this world because like we have witches, we have sirens, we have Valkyries. In this book specifically, like I was very excited because, the war with the gods was coming. So, that was something I was obviously looking forward to since the first book. And like in the first half, it was just so much about the romance that like there was nothing else happening other than just romance, like romances, plural. There were a few happening and like I didn't care about any of them. And like there was nothing that was happening that I was like excited about. So the first half really didn't work for me, but in the second half, when we got to, the point of like the fantasy plots, I was actually very interested. I do think, though, that the ending was a bit rushed because like we only really had half of the book to focus on that. So, it felt a bit rushed. But overall, I did really like the second half. I really like the resolution. I really like how most of the characters ended up. So I gave it 3.5 stars. Then was Once a Villain, which was the 3rd and last book in the Monster series. And in this one, we follow Joan. And in the first book, she is 17 or something. And she is working on a summer job. And she's like loving life. She has a crush on a boy that she works with. She's loving her job. She's loving everything. Until she learns one day after an accident happens that like one side of her family are monsters and the other is human. And so she is a monster, or half a monster. And that boy that she had a crush on is actually a monster hunter, like a very famous monster hunter. So she has to, protect herself and her family from him. And then the story gets like way crazier than that. And when this book starts, like the characters and honestly like the whole world is like in a lot of danger. And so we see them having to deal with that. and I really liked it. I was really like invested in the plot, and like there were a few, you know, convenient things that happened, but I was having a good time. And honestly, like even the romance that I didn't care about before, I actually didn't hate it in this book. And like I think I am the exception in this, because most reviews I've seen didn't really like the romance, which I understand. Because do I honestly think, like realistically, these characters would work? No. But actually, surprisingly, it was fun. So I actually had a good time. And yeah, I had fun. I was invested in the plot. There was a lot of action, and I gave it 4 stars. Then I read Catabasis, which is fantasy and dark academia. And we are following Alice, who is a grad student, and she is like in the field of magic. And she really wants to be like, you know, very famous, very well known in that field. And after some magical accident happens that maybe was Alice's fault, her supervisor actually dies, and she needs a letter of recommendation from him to be able to really, you know, be, like I said, more famous and well known in this area, because he himself was very famous and well known. And so she decides to go into hell to look for him to get the letter of recommendation. And Peter, who had the same supervisor as her, also wants the same thing, so he also goes into hell, and they are, you know, exploring hell and trying to get to him. And this was actually like my most anticipated release, because I've loved everything that I've read from R.F. Kuang, and also the premise of this alone sounded super fun. And so I expected it to like immediately be 5 stars, and sadly, it wasn't, because I loved the idea. And also, like, when we were exploring the different courts of hell, like, it was very fun. But what really didn't work for me was the characters. Like, I didn't, you know, love them. And, like, this was also supposed to be a romance, like, enemies to lovers. And I really didn't like them together. And even, like, as not just, like, as a couple, even, like, as, you know, people interacting in general, I didn't really like them together. And also they weren't really like enemies that much. Like they were rivals-ish in a way, but also they were like cooperating from the beginning because they had like to work together. And also at some time, like I was kind of bored, honestly, which it was so disappointing. And it's not like I hated the book, definitely not. I just expected to love it so much. Like my expectations were so high that, you know, they weren't met, and that was really sad. But I did really like the ending. Like Alice was very iconic in the end, so I did like that. And you know, overall I had a good time, but yeah, I just didn't love it, which is really sad, and I gave it 3.5 stars. Then I read Among the Burning Flowers, which was book 0.2, I think, of the Roots of Chaos series. So it's like the prequel of the Priory of the Orange Tree, and this is set like right before that, because we also have a previous prequel that is set like way before, and this one is set like right before the Priory of the Orange Tree. And we are following basically 3 characters in this book. We follow Morosa, who is a princess, but also like a prisoner in her own kingdom. And we follow like the guy that she is engaged to, basically. And we also follow Hestina, who hunts some beasts, because basically there is like the dark force of this world, and there are some creatures, like some wyverns and worms, that basically work for that dark entity, and they have been dormant for a long time, but they are starting to wake up. And so Estina is like hired to kill some of these beasts. And we know that in the Priory of the Orange Tree, there is like a kingdom that works for the darkness, that is like sworn to the darkness. And so in this book, we see like how that starts, which was super interesting. And it was really fun to be back in this world. It was really fun to see some familiar characters. And, you know, a lot of it was very sad, because the characters really were in terrible conditions, and you could really feel like the desperation of some of these characters. And overall, I really liked it. I just wish that we had like resolution for one of the characters, like more closure, because we kind of knew where they were headed, but not fully. So like I wanted more closure on that. But overall, I really liked it, and I gave it 4 stars. And finally, the last book was What Stalks the Deep, which was the 3rd book in the Sworn Soldier series, and it was horror. And so basically in the series, you follow Easton, who used to be a soldier, and they are contacted by a friend that we actually met in the 1st book, because his cousin, like that friend's cousin, went missing after he went exploring a cave. And so he calls Easton, and Easton goes there to help, to basically try to figure out what happened to that guy's cousin. And, you know, they go explore into the cave, and there are definitely some creepy things happening down in the cave, and I was liking, you know, the creepiness of it. But then when we found out what it actually was, I didn't think it was that creepy anymore. And like, I still liked it overall. I enjoyed it. Like, I really like Easton, and also another character that has been appearing since the first book as well, that is always like going with Easton. Like, I really like both of them, and like, I did like the creepiness that we got, but I just didn't love it as much as the two previous books in the series, and I gave it 3.5 stars. And so now to answer the question of whether I liked my anticipated releases or not, like, I definitely overall did, and I did like the average rating of the books, and it was 3.8, which I would say is definitely positive. Like, I think in previous years has been maybe a bit higher. I'm not entirely sure actually, but overall I really like them. I had, I think, 2 5-stars, and I had a lot of 4 or 4.5 stars, and then there were a few 3s. But overall, I definitely liked it. The book that I liked the least was definitely This Book Will Bury Me, but other than that, everything was like 3 or above, so definitely enjoyed. For the most part, I can predict what books I will like, and I mean, a lot of them were from series or from authors that I already knew, so like, you know, most likely I would enjoy them because I had enjoyed like things from the same series or the same authors in the past. But yeah, I am very happy with these books. I had a lot of fun reading almost all of them, and yeah, that is everything for this video. So thank you so much for watching. I really hope that you have enjoyed it, and if you did, give it a like and subscribe, and I will talk to you next time. Bye!